Good afternoon, everybody. It's me, DayLife Mary. If you are new, I am going live telling my story from the very beginning until I left Chicago to go IRL to join a cult. And as I suspected, the closer I get to now in my life story, the more uncomfortable I am telling it, and the more detail I'm getting into as things are closer and closer to now. And when I last left off, basically it was my year after graduating college and the types of work I ended up doing. And when I directly left off, I believe I was talking about coming out of trying to get into like a situationship with a man who had been like ruined by women, quote unquote, and didn't ever want to be in a committed relationship again, while exploring the world of all kinds of different jobs, so many different jobs. But before I go further in, I would like to tell you to make a wash. Why am I sighing? Because I've almost given up hope on Instagram ever being anything more than a kind of parasitic experience. And I'm sad because, hey, there's a whole audience here who, for the most part, don't wash. And there's places for everyone, but I'm excited every time someone gets to get into that type of relationship with the pleasure matrix, which is what DayLife Army is expanding each day. So this is your opportunity to make a wash, cash.me/$washitall, paypal.me/washitall, and, make a exchange for the story you're getting right now, because I don't give shit away for free, actually. I would not be here and be doing what I am doing, and DayLife Army would not exist if that were the case. So, it was 2016 at this point. The summer was approaching, and I knew that I would have to do something different because substitute teaching does not happen during the summer. And substitute teaching was getting very, very difficult for me to do every week. I liked that it had no boss and that it was fucking weird. It was crazy. I would get a database online of all the different schools across the city that needed substitute teachers, and most of the openings were in the south side and the west side, in the craziest schools. And it was K through 12, and you didn't know what class you were teaching when you signed up. You just showed up to the school and to the office and signed in. You could literally only just talk to the office clerk the whole day and be in a classroom with kids you'd never met before and have the whole day, and then leave, sign out without a trace, and never go there again. And you made your own schedule. So I was very excited that I could just sign up for 3 days a week, but it was really, really, really hard to do anything more than 3 days a week, and it paid $130 a day, I believe. And I had the job at the bar still a little bit at that point, I think, and then I was doing sex work, so that was how I was cobbling things together. And I remember it was the end of the school year, and I had probably the worst substitute teaching experience I had had yet. And I wasn't there are lots of subconscious reasons we all do everything, and I was trying to learn certain things by doing this, and I was, trying to gain this authenticity. I wanted to be subconsciously around I wanted to be around black people and I was trying to learn from different things, but I was a glorified prison warden, and it was becoming more and more apparent that that was the case. And this one day when I went in, and it was like 4th graders, and they were crazy. It was the day after Halloween. I had to break up fistfights. I was like, a kid was crying under a table, rocking back and forth. I had like kids running around tearing shit off of the walls, like being so insane. Like they looked traumatized in a weird way, and I didn't understand what was happening, and I had to call other teachers from other classrooms, and they like yelled at the students while I was standing there. And this was the day that I had never cried in front of kids, no matter what they had done. But that day, it was getting so crazy, and I had been at my wit's end, and the teacher was laying into them, saying that they were a disappointment to everyone in the school and themselves, and I was like, whoa, this is intense, and I was crying, but I had like kept it together until the end-ish of the day. So I think I just, the day ended, and I walked out of there in a way that was like, I should not have done it. Like, I kind of just walked out in a stupor and did not like check out or anything, and the office people like laughed at me when I was leaving, like, this fucking white bitch does not know what she's doing. I had never had any teacher training. I had just been a babysitter, and I just went home and went to bed like when I got home at like 4 p.m. and like slept until the morning. And I got on the case to get a different job, for the summer at least. I mean, I did substitute teaching for at least a year plus after that, but I applied to this bakery cafe in my neighborhood in Pilsen, and I got the job for the summer. So I had this, basically, like, I was a barista and made sandwiches and just hung out at this cafe that had these shitty owners that were part of the Pilsen gentrification crew, and they called it the Spoke and Bird Cafe, which is the worst name. It's like hard to say, sounds like spoken word, is because they liked to be bikers, like not like motorcycle bikers, like cyclists. And Carl lived kind of on the street. It was cute. He was coming into the bakery and ordering things to hang out, and I was like so happy to have a more chill job. And I had to wake up at like 7 a.m. every morning to do that job, which I didn't like. I was smoking so much weed by then, and they had like beers in the fridge, and I would just start drinking when I got off work at like 3 p.m. and, you know, being a drunk slut still. And at this point I started getting a serious, more stable babysitting gig with one family. This family who owns Lula Café, for all you Chicago hipsters. And the mother was into music and like friends with the people from Wilco, and like did music projects with them, and they're friends down the street. The father used to be in Iron and Wine, so they were like this very specific older hipster guard of Chicago, and I was babysitting for them with the bakery job and also doing sex work, so it's like a really chaotic combination of things. And I had a roommate and a new apartment closer into Pilsen than the North Lawndale, West Pilsen area I had that cheap-ass apartment in. This one I had a friend. She was this Russian girl that was like really good at cleaning and like had a chaotic life too, but she had kind of more of her shit together, and she taught me how to like really clean a house. And we lived with her dog, who was a fucking like cattle dog, border collie or whatever, so like that's insane to live in a small apartment with that kind of a dog. And I remember like it just barked all the time. It was such a large presence in my life for 1 year. And if you aren't noticing this pattern, I literally lived everywhere for 1 year. And since I was 13, I moved at least rooms because I was at boarding school, but after that, apartments every year. So I was never in one room twice in a year. or for more than a year. So I was excited about my new love. I was like kind of digmatized by Carl. I was like very obsessed with that as a part of my life and being with him, and I was also so excited and like intellectually stimulated because we were digging into all the conspiracies together, you know, watching videos late at night, getting into like having another person to connect with about what's really reality versus like the false reality that can be quite isolating to like pretend and agree upon with other people. And most of my friends were pretty liberal brainwashed, and I'm not saying that each side of that bird isn't brainwashed, but the liberal brainwashed side was pretty fucking intense. And so like during that summer, Carl, I like wanted to have like an actual real relationship with him. He was so hard to like hold down into any type of like seeing him consistently, and I was unhappy with it, and I did this thing where I kind of was like I broke up with him to like make him change, and tried to lasted a month without talking or speaking to him, saying that I like couldn't handle that he would never come to my place and didn't really want to like be in the type of relationship that I wanted. And I lasted a month, and part of it I like went home to Maine to visit, so it was easier. And then immediately like I was in the train, and I think I literally lied and said I had been in Chicago for a day or so I didn't seem so fucking thirsty. But I like when I got there, I went to his house and to talk, and we just immediately got together again. And we, at that point, I kind of broke him, and he was like in a relationship with me, and no one had been able to do that. And I was like, well, he did it for me. And since his like, he had so many crazy girlfriends, 2 of which had gone through like MK Ultra, so that's just like, he was someone who always attracted the MI side of life too, so we were really a perfect pair in that way. So the summer was winding down. I was probably seeing like 2 or 3 clients a month that were regulars, so it's like, and every time I tried to like see another client, I would go out and have lunch or dinner with them. We would have sex, and then like it just wasn't, I'm a very trusting person, and there are a lot of like reasons why I'm where I am today because of that, and why a lot of things that are good have happened to me, because we live in a trust apocalypse out there right now. But a lot of things I'm like, damn, I can't believe nothing bad ever happened to me. But like, I have to say, every single client I ever met, while they had varying personalities and were like shitty in some ways, they were all perfectly respectful, and I never had any problems, except for my own problems of being a really fucking bad hoe and like not counting or being like clear and concise about how much money I was getting sometimes, or like having low standards. But I was doing that and the bakery job, and the school year started back up, and I was able to substitute a lot less. And it's crazy how bad substitute teaching was, and yet I still did it. It's just showing you my like threshold for like doing things that I hated. And I got to be like, I was trying to wind that down as much as possible, but keeping my license active by making sure I didn't get out of the groove of it. Because if I didn't do it for a while, it was like going in, like the scab had grown over and I had to like tear it off again. Whereas if I substitute taught at least once a week, it was like the fresh wound kept itself open. And I learned by then that high school kids were the best to sub for, because anyone who had like any soul left in them had been like ground out of them by then, so they weren't like so crazy to deal with. And most kids who were like gonna cause problems had already been kicked out of school by then or stopped going. So and I was working on comics I was making comics, selling comics at stores in Chicago, doing fests and whatever. And the queer art collective that I had talked about being in and founding with my friends in college had winded down, and I was like, I started up my own collective for Skillshare, and I don't even want to talk about it. Oh my god. But yeah, that was going on, and I was getting into this tattoo crew, like this house called Yolanda that used to be some place like Temple Head in Chicago, in Pilsen. The underground tattoo people would hang out there, and one of the guys, it was like he was the like epicenter of it all, Eddie, he like lived in the apartment, and on Sundays everyone would hang out there and practice tattooing, and people would come through, kind of like the DIY scene with tattooing. How it was like if you were underground and certainly like known in certain ways, you would do tours, so they would have people come through on their tours at that place and do tattoos, and everyone would make art and stuff, and there were some graffiti people that crossed over with them, and I was like, I'm a nerd, I'll have you know, and a goody two-shoes and a New England wasp. So I was like, my like authenticity tour of Chicago was reaching new heights, because I was like, yeah, I'm hanging out with all these like tatted up fucking skaters and graffiti artists, and like this dude Eddie I had a crush on, and he was kind of into conspiracies, so I like got to tell him the shit I knew, and he like learned shit from me. And I got to hang out around him and his vibe and be like, oh my god, you're so cute, and I'm so cool to hang out here on Sundays with these people. And I managed to escape unscathed, I have like 3 tattoos from that period that are horrible and ugly and disgusting. But the people I knew had their entire bodies tattooed, their entire bodies. Like this one guy, he was a violin player in the orchestra, but if he could wear a suit and have his like wrists and his ankles and his neck and above clean, everything else was completely tatted by the time he got done hanging out there. So that's, by this time, 2017, I am getting a little bit of DIY comic world clout, and I like start, when I'm drunk, going into like flat earth and shit with people at parties who don't want to hear it, and just like I'm having a hard time keeping in all the things I'm finding out about the world and not sharing them, and when I'm drunk it just, all bets are off. And people are my friends are kind of just like, quirky Emily, and this is before the organized campaign by the mainstream media starts to kind of create the term fake news and alt-right and Pizzagate and all these things to start making people actually think the truth is this dangerous thing, and that people are like, basically I'm getting in right before like saying the things that I'm saying would alert your friends to start like ostracizing you and calling you QAnon or whatever. And by that time I've already come here, really. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So during this time I am in my apartment on Facebook, and at one point I have still seen General Koa and Wiz online here and there since Christopher, but I see a status by General Koa on Facebook that's like talking about birth control and how you should get the fuck off of hormonal birth control, and something about it piqued my interest, and I had already gotten off my SSRI Zoloft, and I felt less like a zombie, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do the birth control thing too, I think, after seeing the status. And she like had offered to do calls with people, so I was like, I'd like to have a call with you, a video chat. And she was like, great, you can make a wash. And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, yeah, like you can make a wash either financial payment or social payment or a combination of the two. And I was a cheap fucking bitch, so I asked for less money and then said that I would make a status sharing the information that she shared as my social payment. And so she agreed, and we had our talk, and I was like, yeah, I used to be dating Christopher. And she was like, oh, Christopher, yeah, we know him. He used to talk to Wiz. We've talked to him. We tried to give him advice on his gang stalking shit that was happening to him. And I was like, yeah, well, funny, he's kind of stalking me after we've broken up and it's been a little difficult. And she was like, yeah, he told us about that. And, like, I don't know what she said. I think that, like, she was like, no, you shouldn't do that, when he was saying what he was trying to do, like, win me back and stuff. And we have a great conversation. I learn a lot. She tells me to start practicing this fertility awareness method. You can make a wash, and you can DM me if you want to know about that right now. I have intimate knowledge, and it's how I got back connected up to this. Funny enough, it's the entry point. So I started doing the things she told me, and get this, I fucking freaked out and decided to delete my Facebook and never did the social payment. So I ripped Koa off as my first more intimate interaction. And after that, I remember, like, I was off Facebook and kind of trying to, like, detox from the social sphere online by just avoiding it entirely, and all of the things that I think were being kind of picked up from washing, because the washing is a real process. Like, I know that I've talked about it, and y'all who are watching, most of the people watching on Instagram have never washed, but things in my life started to change in a certain way after I had done a wash. The freak out is a part of it. And soon after that, I decided to quit the bakery because it sucked, and I hated the owners, basically, was the biggest issue. I hated having bosses. So the sex work, the substitute teaching, the babysitting, the being a freelance artist, those were all ways to escape being, having a boss, kind of. But it was all a pain matrix fucking bullshit. I hated it all. It just was various levels of what I hated the least. And Pedro says, I keep imagining how life would be if we weren't injected with zombie demonic intelligences from birth. Yeah, bro, I wonder what it would be like too, but, there's a way back from that. And okay, so then I'm like getting this thing. So I quit the bakery job only as soon as I realized that I'm gonna get this summer camp counselor job. And I did this a lot. Like, I was always kind of too afraid to go full freelance and just do escorting and my art, or the other things that were, like, less stable, quote unquote. But so I got the courage to leave the bakery job because I had gotten the camp counselor job. And I saw some meme that was like the male urge to, like, quit the job without having anything lined up after, and it made me chuckle because that, I don't know, maybe it's a female trait, but, like, not having something and having things be totally unknown was so fucking terrifying to me. So I get this bougie camp counselor job in the suburbs, and this is just, like, a little example of how much I was willing to suffer and hate shit and still do it. And I didn't even do that much. I don't understand how the people who had that camp counselor job were not as fucking horrified and hated it as much as I did. But what I did was I basically got up at like 5:15 a.m. and I took the train into the Loop in Chicago, and then I took the Metra from Chicago to Winnetka. And then I got there at, like, I don't know, 7:30 or something, and started a full day of being a camp counselor that was really a teacher. I had a lesson plan book that was this thick, and I had to plan lessons each day for art, science, and like outdoors. And I had like 4th and 5th graders, and I worked with kids all day, and then I prepped my lessons for the next day, and then I took the train back, and I got back home and basically had enough time to like eat dinner and fall asleep. And I did that Monday to Friday, and I wanted to kill myself. I wrote some of the bad poetry that would be some of my last comic books from the trains going into work that summer. And that's pain matrix for you, suffering to make your art. But that was happening, and man, I was going to like bring up one of the poems, but it's so bad and I didn't prep it. But I think like I made like alternative comics that were super experimental, and I had like, it had just the text and the image were related, but it wasn't like people talking with bubbles, voice bubbles or whatever. But I think there was shit about like time and like hating. I look back at those comics and I see the desires I was expressing in them and the things that I hated, and I'm not at all surprised at the overlap from the principles that are here in the Templar pleasure ethic and what I do now. I made that one wash to Koa, and it fucking made shit change, and I started thinking about things that I didn't even know were a part of Temple or DLA, but they were in my life, and I had been connected up to that matrix. But so that was that summer, and I got through the camp counseling job and vowed to never fucking do that again. And I went back to Maine, I believe it was that summer, and I picked up my mom's old car, and Carl and I drove back. Yes, at this time, Carl and I are serious enough. He's coming home to visit my family, something he never would have agreed to do when we first met. So we drive back to Chicago, and I have a car in the city now, which is a game changer. And I get this job from my old boss when I was in work study, being an admissions person, like selling the satanic art school dream to kids. And I agree to it because it's like good money to go and drive to different college fairs and tell the kids about the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and then leave and get paid for the 2 hours that takes or whatever. So the school year was starting back up, and I was doing that. I would occasionally sub, barely at all now, and I had my few clients through escorting, and I was getting into like going on just an initial date and getting paid, and then just kind of like ghosting, because then I wouldn't have to have sex with anyone. That was starting to happen. And at this point, Carl and I are like totally codependent. I just like always want to be around him, and I don't have like, I care more about our life together than my own life, and I just feel like I want to be with him because I don't like being alone when I'm alone. And I have a new roommate too by this time. It's been a year, and I actually renewed the lease at this apartment, so I stayed for 2 years, which had never happened before. And I got my friend who used to be in the Queer Art Collective with me, his boyfriend moved in with me, and he's like this half black, like contemporary conceptual art dancer. Like he would be at the MCA, like the Museum of Contemporary Art, in a piece for someone if they needed like a classically trained dancer. And he like was an actor, and I believe he did like those sessions where you go and pretend to be seen as a patient in doctors, like empathy exams. They're like some white bitch made a book about it, and she like gaslit people with Morgellons. That's all I remember from that book. Anyways, I lived with him. We got along fine. We just were like cordial and fake mostly, but we liked each other. And what was happening? Like, so I I hadn't touched the conversation with General Koa or like gone back into that shit, and I was like, things seem to be going a little better for me, and I wonder why that is. And like I was getting into all my own rabbit holes, and I fell into the Hotep rabbit hole. I called it my Sno-tep era. And I was like, I ordered an Old Testament online, and I had all these issues with like whiteness that I was trying to figure the fuck out, and like white guilt, clearly, and like wanting to learn some of the shit that I was seeing in those communities from black men mostly. And I was still trying to be an artist, and I was fasting, and like for biblical and orthorexic reasons, because I was like a vegan doing crazy shit with food and control as a part of like how to deal with all of my issues and feelings about being in a body on earth. But at some point 2017 was coming to a close, and as the spring approached, I got into my first artist's residency, which I had been trying to do since graduating college. A little bit. I was a little jaded about the art world, but I also was like, this was a comics residency. And I was so excited that I had gotten into a residency, and they had given me half scholarship, and I called my mom and was freaking out, and I think I needed like $1,000 more, $1,200 more, and she was like, honey, I'll take it out of, my mom like doesn't have a retirement fund, but she had money because she's like in her 60s and she works office jobs without any plans in that regard. But she was like, I'll take that out, and because like this is your dream and whatever. And I was so excited, and as soon as I had this dream and this idea of like going to Finland and doing this artist residency for a month, my money shit just started really popping off. I like got more clients, I started saving money, I did the college fairs, and I was able to stack up more than I had ever stacked at one time. I had like $2,000 or something, and I was super excited because come May I was gonna go on my own and like do this thing, and I was like, it was the longest I would ever have been apart from Carl, and that was scary to me, and I like was also at the same time so excited that I was just like, I was ready to do it. And basically I think that's where I'm gonna end today, because the residency, I want to go into it like into more detail, because it's an important part of why I'm here now, and it has to do with desire and dreams and belief. And I think that's it for today. So make a wash, multiples of 12. My goal is 480 today at a minimum, so if you watch this later, make a $48 wash. If you're broke, make a $24 wash or a $12 wash and send this video to other people. Talk about DayLife Army, tag me in some shit. And if you have money, make a $120 wash. See what happens when you make a wash. There's choices and things that emerge, and it's just up to you what happens next. So I'll talk to y'all later in a couple days, part 7. And that's gonna be a little heavy, but you know how it is.